Did you know that Chester Bennington of Linkin Park wanted to punch label executives at Warner Brothers in the face when producing the band's debut album? Or that the band was rejected by 45 record labels prior to finally being signed? What about the hit song that Chester originally hated and didn't want to include on the album? Stick around and we'll answer these questions and more on 10 Fun Facts About Hybrid Theory by Linkin Park. Number 1. Not first choice. Linkin Park began in 1996 as a rap rock group performing under the name of Xero. The name was changed to Hybrid Theory when lead vocalist Chester Bennington joined the band. However, complications with a European electronic music duo who already went by Hybrid caused the band to go with Linkin Park. Their debut full-length album would receive the name Hybrid Theory, which was actually a reference to the band's combination of different musical genres.
Heavy metal, rap, pop, go Park.
Number 2. Bad Tour Buddies. Chester Bennington and company scoffed at early criticism that Linkin Park was nothing more than a new metal boy band, and played with a chip on his shoulder, stating that the band wanted to put on a show that went so hard that nobody would want to invite them on tour. As he told an interviewer with Metal Hammer, "It gave us something to prove and drove us on for sure. There was a lot of false perception about us, but what we did instead of talking about it was make it our mission that when we played, we wanted everyone who played after us to go, fuck. We wanted to be the band that no one wanted to tour with because we would turn up, crush the fucking crowd, and then everyone would want to leave after us. We wanted to kick people in the face." Number 3. Hard work pays off. The band worked incredibly hard just to get their early demo tapes noticed. The group auditioned and were declined by at least 45 record labels, according to Bennington. However, good fortune paid off when the band's A&R manager landed a job at Warner Brothers, negotiating a contract with the label where part of his terms would allow Linkin Park to be his first signing. As collaborative vocalist Mike Shinoda told Metal Hammer, "We showcased for every fucking label there was, and they all turned us down." Chester would go on to add, "No one wanted us, but we knew we had something fucking special. We just kept pushing. Most bands probably try out in front of 3 labels, get rejected, and give up. We played in front of 45, but our attitude was, these guys are fucking stupid if they can't see what we've got. We knew what we had and never doubted it."
Oh yeah, we don't take no for an answer. We don't take no for an answer. We don't take no for an answer.
No.
Okie dokie.
No.
Gotcha, thanks. Terrific, thanks for your time.
Let me say,
It starts with
maybe.
Number 4. Give him the boot. Although the band were lucky to have a new connection at Warner Brothers, they still had to fight tooth and nail with the label in order to maintain their creative vision for the band, including pressure to remove songwriter and vocalist Mike Shinoda. However, Chester stood up for his creative partner. "These guys sat me down and were like,
Oh, you've got such an amazing voice. You could be such a shining star.
they wanted to see if I would pull a coup and get Mike out. They told me I'd be the face of the band and that Mike had no story because he's just some kid from Agora. They wanted some fucking rapper from New York who no one knew to come and do vocals on the record. I just wanted to punch those idiots in the face because they couldn't see the golden fucking teat of awesomeness that was right in front of them. Mike's one of the most productive songwriters of our era, I think. God knows how many number ones we've had, but if he wasn't in the band, we wouldn't have had any of those." Number 5. Fine with being dull. The band initially took a lot of heat from the hard rock music scene for creating emotionally driven music. As Bennington explains, "I think that the difference between us and someone like Korn or Limp Bizkit is that, to me, a lot of that music was made for a frat party, a drunken brawl, slutty dudes taking their tops off and feeding off their own testosterone. What we didn't connect with in that scene was that there wasn't a lot of room for more introspective emotion. People would ask us, well, Jonathan Davis practically grew up in a morgue and all those horrible things. What gives you the right to be angry? But you don't have to have gone through the worst things in the world to be sad. I think that's something that ultimately really connected with our fans. that you don't have to be an outcast and a fuck-up to take something from this music on an emotional level. If that makes us dull, then fine.
Are you in loser denial or something?
I had a bad case of loser denial myself, until the lacrosse team stuck a parking code up my ass.
Number 6. Soldier with Dragonfly Wings. The iconic album art featuring a soldier with dragonfly wings was created by vocalist Mike Shinoda, who was fascinated with stencil art and the works of Banksy at the time. More specifically, the stencil soldier was Shinoda's creation, while another band member added the dragonfly wings as a nice touch. As Mike told Vulture in 2020, "We had seen the Banksy stuff in art publications like Juxtapose. People were passing it around and stuff, and there was this image of a monkey that said, 'Laugh now, but one day we'll be in charge.' It was the essence of Banksy, that sarcasm, political and social-political commentary. We also love the idea of stencil art. I made the soldier, Frank stenciled and sprayed it. I didn't come up with the idea for the wings. Somebody else, either Joe or Frank, suggested those, and then Frank kind of laid out the whole thing with the textures and everything. I don't think I responded to the textures and the colors of it as much as I just responded to that stencil. The stencil on its own is a definitive piece of art for the band." I hate to admit it, but I kind of agree with Mike on this one. As a casual Linkin Park fan, the stencil and the title always stood out to me. I honestly didn't even know that there were wings behind the soldier. I always thought it was just an X.
Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings,
A soldier
it's his wings.
That's right. That's right.
Number 7. Crawling in the Darker Ending. The music video for Crawling was created by the brothers Strauss, who had previously done special effects for Hollywood movies, including the iceberg scene from Titanic, and who would later go on to direct the films Alien vs. Predator Requiem and Skyline. One of the original ideas for the Crawling music video include a scene inspired by the 1995 science fiction film Species, where a psycho fan comes in at the end and kills the band. Discarding this concept was probably a good choice, considering that the film wasn't very memorable aside from a few, shall we say, titillating scenes from Natasha Henstridge. As video producer Colin Strauss explains, "We first came up with a couple ideas, a little bit more hardcore, a little bit more evil, and the record label wants it a little bit happier. So we kind of talked to the band, figured out a little bit what they wanted, toned the treatment down, kind of making sure both sides of the fence were happy."
It starts with...
Did you have to be so graphic?
Did you know?
That I do all of the editing for these videos by myself. Yep, that's right, me, one person, including research, script writing, voiceovers, thumbnails, video editing, promotion. It's a lot of work and requires a full-time job for one person to handle, which I don't mind doing because I love being able to express my humor while also talking about the music that I enjoy. However, it would also be great to have some help improving my content, and that's where I need your help. The easiest way to support this channel is to click the like button. This will help the video get shown to more people. A better way to support this channel is to subscribe and hit the notification bell. This will help you get notified when we release new videos each week. And if you really want to make a big difference, check the description of this video for more ways that you can help this channel grow and support the creation of new content. If you like what we're doing, show us some love and let us know that you're out there. And let us know in the comments what your favorite album is. Perhaps we'll talk about it in a future video. Thank you all so much for your continued love and support. Number 8, burp. Defining song. While many people would argue that In the End is the band's signature song, Mike Shinoda has a different opinion. Paper Cut is one of those songs that pairs up some of my favorite kinds of rock music and some of my favorite kinds of dance music. Chester and I are both rapping, both singing, and it really sums up what our band was all about. That's why we put it at the start of the record, because it was such a great introduction to who we were and who we are. I still love it to this day. Number 9. Mr. Brightside. Although the lyrics he writes can often come across as pessimistic, songwriter Mike Shinoda insists that it's all for the art. In the end, it's such a weird one. If you listen to the lyrics, it's so pessimistic, and I'm not really that pessimistic. Actually, my friends often accuse me of finding the silver lining in things too often. So to write those words and then to have them be the biggest song off the album, it forced me to have a different perspective on what the song is for and what the meaning of that song in the world is. Basically, the songs were like an outreach. The songs were an invitation to the show, whether you listened to One Step Closer and said, "That's so dope, it's so angry," or if you listened to In the End and there was something about the pessimism and the negativity that you related to. You could come to our show, and it wasn't a farce. That's how I felt at the time. But in the big picture, that's not who I am. So people would come to the shows because they really connected with these negative emotions, and we gave them something positive to rally around. The songs were like, "If you feel this way, come together." We always talked about a catharsis. They gotta get out all these negative and difficult thoughts and emotions.
I feel like I'm gonna explode here!
Number 10. Chester Doesn't Know. Chester decided to stay out of the single selection process, admitting that he originally hated In the End and didn't want to include it on the album. As he told V Music in 2014, "I didn't really participate in picking singles. I was never a fan of In the End, and I didn't even want it to be on the record, honestly. How wrong could I have possibly been? I basically decided at that point, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about." It also gave me a good lesson as an artist that I don't necessarily have to only make music that I want to listen to. More often than not, something that I like, very few other people like. And something that those people like is something that I kinda like or don't like at all. And that's cool, it gives me a new appreciation for the song. But you know, now I love In the End, and I think it's such a great song. I actually see how good of a song it is. It was just hard for me to see it at the time.
Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. You're cool.